Ben, let's talk about the quarterbacks at the top of the rankings. We have as our top three Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen. Do you see it any differently at the top of the board?
No. I think this week kind of starts and maybe not ends, but certainly starts with that Buffalo at Arizona matchup. We have Josh Allen, we have Kyler Murray. We have two teams that run 10 personnel, four wide receiver sets, more than any other teams in the league. They both run over 100 plays, about 20% of their snaps out of 10 personnel. There's only one other team over 20 plays all season. That's Tampa Bay at 50. So these guys are way out and above in 10 personnel usage and four wide usage in general. We know Buffalo loves to pass heavy on early downs. Their pass rate over expectations very high. Arizona plays very fast. They're not necessarily a pass heavy over expectation team, but they're going to play fast. So this is a game that you got to love both quarterbacks. You got to love the total, the atmosphere in the game entirely.
All right, so you have those three guys at the top of the board. Are there some quarterbacks in particular that you think you might be high on relative to expectations or relative to what might be consensus across the industry as we move into the week?
Yeah, I mean, I start and end right now with these elite quarterbacks. One that I'm a little bit higher on right now uh, is Lamar Jackson, and it's a matter of expectation. I think if you are still expecting Lamar Jackson to be a top two quarterback like he was in draft season, then you're probably missing the boat here. I don't think he's even in the top tier or particularly close to it right now. But he has only played two games that have finished within 14 points all season. The Ravens have been a part of a bunch of blowouts. Last week, they had the long defensive touchdown that helped them sort of coast to a win. The Colts weren't doing a whole lot. I think as we get a little bit more variance in their outcomes, and if the Patriots can at least make this a little bit competitive in Foxborough, we will see more aggressiveness from Lamar. Now, they've been a lot less aggressive this year, but those two games that have been reasonably close, he's had two of his better games of the entire season. So that is something that I'm keeping an eye on. But yeah, for the most part, I'm leaning to Kyler, Russ, Allen. Aaron Rodgers has a very high team total. The guys that have been productive.
All right, so this is good. We're going to be, I think, on opposite sides here a little bit because I mean, a lot of respect for Lamar, but I'm low on Lamar Jackson this week, but I think we're actually pretty aligned on where we see him. It's just I have him at number 7. I think there might be some people who have him in the top 5 this week, and I can't go there, given the excellent matchups that some of these other quarterbacks have. And I'm going to say literally the same thing about Lamar this week that I said last week and the week before that. He's just not as dynamic as a runner this year as he was last year, and he hasn't progressed as a passer. And then that offense is playing slower, and they're scoring fewer touchdowns overall. And so, I mean, Ben, as you put it, people who are thinking of Lamar as a locked in top 2 guy, they're going to be disappointed. And I'm kind of looking at him in that way and taking the negative approach of he's not a top 2 guy. He's probably not a top 5 guy. So he's someone I am relatively low on this week, but you are relatively high on him. It will be interesting to see how this shakes out. Sean, I don't know. Did we have any sort of bet this week to determine who gets to go first? We didn't. We need to be better about this. Sean, I'm going to give you the first bite of the juicy apple here. Who are you relatively high on?
So I'm pretty high on Jared Goff this week. He opens my week 10 projections as my QB7. He's coming off that brutal 4 turnover game at Miami. That was before their bye. But I see him bouncing back in a big way against Seattle. They've allowed the most fantasy points against opposing quarterbacks. The total for this game, I believe it's the highest of the week at 55.5. So this is likely going to be a shootout. And one of the downsides with Goff is his passing touchdowns are pretty low. But this week, I think the scoring environment sets up for a 2 to 3 touchdown game. And plus, it's super easy to stack him with either Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, or both. Those guys are a target funnel, so he's easily stackable in GPPs. And the other guy, it's pretty obvious, but Josh Allen at QB2, I just think he's back to being, the sky-high ceiling Josh Allen. I think, with John Brown out the past few games, that could have been why he tended to struggle a bit. But John Brown looks fully healthy again, and no coincidence, we saw a massive game from Josh Allen. Ben alluded to earlier, but this Buffalo Arizona game is, DFS heaven. So I'll be stacking this game heavily and having a ton of Josh Allen. I think we're back to having him being, just elite ceiling Josh Allen.
All right, Raybon, who are you relatively high on?
Two guys, Jake Luton, for the Jags, making another start here. This game has a 14-point spread in favor of the Packers, so you're gonna get some play from behind from Luton. He was willing to throw the ball down the field in his first start. Average depth of target of 8.5, and that's a lot better than Gardner Minshew, who is throwing underneath a lot more. So I think even if it comes kind of in a little bit in garbage time, Luton could be valuable, especially in tournaments at 5,400. And then Drew Brees. I think a lot of people are going to go to Jared Goff in that Seattle Rams game at 6,500 on DraftKings. I actually have Brees ranked ahead of Goff right now as my QB7, and I think he's going to be a lot lower owned than Goff. And this San Francisco defense, really not quite the same. We saw Aaron Rodgers kind of torch it up. I know Sherman will be back, but Brees at home, the implied point total is over 30 right now. I think that's a really good pivot off of Goff.
All right, a guy I'm high on, and Ben, you mentioned him earlier, Aaron Rodgers. I have him ranked number 2 overall. He has that, 33-point total, implied total, the highest on the slate. He historically crushes at home, especially as a favorite. He's playing at a near MVP level, and the Jags have one of the league's worst pass defenses. On top of that, Alan Lazard looks like this might be the week that he finally returns, and the Packers have 3 extra days to prepare because they played on Thursday Night Football. So everything just seems to align for a smash spot right here from Aaron Rodgers. Ben, I mentioned that I am low on Lamar Jackson. Who is someone you are low on?
Yeah, a couple of guys here that I kind of just want to talk about as guys that I really like long term, but am not probably going to use a lot of this week. But again, it kind of comes down to expectations. I think both the rookies, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, are guys that we should be expecting to have huge second halves and guys that we want to be long on down the stretch. But both are in kind of tough spots this week. Herbert's traveling to Miami, traveling, obviously west to east. I believe that's in the later time block. So, he doesn't have the early body clock game, but it's still not, a long travel week, not a great setup on the road. And Burrows is even tougher at Pittsburgh. So those are two guys that I'm probably not going to be using a lot this week, but are two guys that I absolutely love, the rest of the way.
Sean, who are you low on?
So Ryan Tannehill plays Thursday night, so this is more of a season-long low on kind of guy, but I have him ranked as my QB 19. So, if you have him and you lean on him as your QB 1, I would look for a 1-week rental. Can't play him against the Colts. They've allowed the fewest points against opposing QBs, and Tannehill's been struggling the past couple of games, specifically when under pressure. So I'll be fading him this weekend, season-long leagues. And then the other guy is Aaron Rodgers. And I agree with everything you said, Freeman. I view Aaron Rodgers, this price is for cash games. He's probably worth every single penny because he probably has the highest floor this week. But, I think they're up to 14-point favorites now. So I think his ceiling might be capped against the Jaguars. I just don't see him going completely bonkers. So I would say if you're going to take a guy in this price range for GPPs, I would lean on Kyler Murray or Josh Allen. I just think their ceilings are much, much higher. But again, I love Aaron Rodgers this week. I think he's a great cash game play, but for 7,100 for GPPs, it's a little bit too pricey for me.
Raybon, who are you fading?
So Teddy Bridgewater going against Tampa Bay. I think, we saw Drew Brees rip up Tampa Bay's defense last week, somewhat unexpectedly, but, and Teddy had a pretty good game against KC. So I think people may be kind of on him in what could, somewhat of a high total game, but I think that Tampa Bay is going to come on a lot more focused this week after really kind of sleepwalking through 2 straight primetime games. Everyone's kind of talking about them. Bruce Arians has called out both sides of the ball. So I think this will be a tough matchup for Teddy Bridgewater going against still one of the best defenses in the league. So I have him outside the top 12 this week.
Okay. It is time for, I don't know if I'd say everyone's favorite part of the show, but certainly the part of the show that I look forward to, and that is telling Sean that he is wrong. Sean, give us the first quarterback prop. And by the way, people should check out the Fantasy Labs player prop tool. where the props with the bet quality of 10 have a 60% win rate over the past 2 years. And when player props are posted on Friday and Saturday, you can bet them at BetMGM. Sean, give us the quarterback prop.
Well, you guys talked about him quite a bit earlier, but I really want to nail down his passing yard projection, and that's Lamar Jackson. He's only topped 200 yards 3 times this year, so he's pretty reminiscent of 2018 Lamar Jackson, not 2019. So curious to hear where you guys are on him early in the week, but I have his over-under right now at 207.5 passing yards. Are you guys above or below that?
Okay, Sean, I'm just going to say my projection is over at 212, but I know you want me to take over. I'm going to take the under here.
I'm not trying to trick. I'm trying to get my projection right. So there's no trickery afoot here.
Okay. Well, I have it projected at 212, but that's, more of like the median. That's more of the mean versus the median. So I'm going to take under here.
I will go over. I have it at 218. I mean, Joe Flacco just threw for 262 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Patriots. I'm not super concerned about the matchup. I think the combined passing yard prop, I think, is interesting because you have Cam Newton on the other side. He also doesn't throw for many yards. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, I'm going over. I'm betting on some regression for Lamar as they get kind of comfortable with, they're playing Duvernay more. They'll probably work Dez in a little more. Less snaps for Boykin, which is probably a good thing at this point. So yeah, I'm taking the over.
I'll take the over too. Yeah, I like a lot of what Raybon said, and I think New England will play a little bit better this week at home than what we saw from them against the Jets on Monday night, and keep it at least a little bit competitive. I also think the Ravens want to get that passing game kind of figured out a little bit. So they've been kind of pushing the ball down the field, not connecting as much as you'd like to see. I think they can hit on a couple big ones.
One thing I would add here is there is the possibility of Stephon Gilmore returning in this game. He's been absent the past 2 games, so that might change things just a little bit if he's able to return.